Our next speaker has an exciting story to share. For the last 10 years, Tom Hendrick has taken two things seriously. Firstly, his legal career as a tax lawyer with one of South Australia's largest and leading firms, Finlayson's. Tom learnt to withstand speaking nerves, difficult conversations, or resistance to change as a lawyer. And secondly, nothing makes Tom happier than helping others work on their speaking fitness to do the same and to grow their business. Because of this, when Tom Hendrick turned 30 this year, makes me feel a bit old, he got himself an interesting self-birthday present. He left his legal career this year to pursue his lifelong passion, not bacon. He is now a business owner, a professional speaker, and a member of BNI Elite. Great, I know you're awake, fantastic. All right, he helps others run towards the microphone, not away from it. With that said, let's give a great BNI welcome to Tom Hendrick with a loud and very vocal welcome. They're all yours.
Thank you so much. Since I was 15 years old, I have loved stand-up comedians. Something about a stand-up comedian is that they can withstand enormous pressure, nerves, the obligation to make people laugh and enjoy themselves. That is tremendous. They are incredibly fit speakers to be able to speak for lengths of times and get lots of jokes in a long period of time. The other thing that really inspires me about stand-up comedians is their mindset. When stand-up comedians do a presentation, they think entirely about the audience. Their ideas have to be crystal clear in the minds of the audience so that they understand the joke and so that the audience enjoys themselves by getting some reaction out of the speaking opportunity. They laugh. When I was 15 years old, I really desperately wanted to be a stand-up comedian. So much so that in year 10 at school, I did a 1-hour stand-up comedy show in front of my whole school. This slide behind me, that's my cover page for my script. You can tell it was 15 years ago because of the very fabulous word art at the top. I took this very seriously. I wanted to be as fit as a stand-up comedian. I wanted to be able to withstand enormous pressure. I wanted to be able to make an audience laugh loud and often. And in order to do that, I put myself through a few rigorous training exercises. When I get nervous, I tend to ramble, and I speak over time. And I'm conscious of time today, and I'd hate to do that. One thing that I used to do is I used to get my older brother to point a really powerful Nerf gun at me. And if I spoke over time, it went too long for a joke, I gave him permission to shoot me. Putting myself under that pressure also helped because when I came onto the stage, the pressure of the Nerf gun was more than actually on stage, so this felt easy. I've actually got the Nerf gun here. Hey. This isn't for you, this is for rather it is for you, it's not for me. This is a very high-powered Nerf gun, or as I call it, my nerves gun. It's battery-powered. It flings very harmless but very powerful foam bullets at 120 miles per hour. This is very fun. And I would like to make at least one person's day today, and that person is our timer. That's Lisa Gill, and I hear that it's her birthday tomorrow. Lisa, will you take this Nerf gun? And in order for me to speak on time, I need to take exactly 2 minutes, no more, on every single slide. I have 22 slides, 2 minutes. If I go for 1 second over, please shoot me. Would you like to take a test round? The bottom bullet revs it up and the top bullet, fire away. Oof, that's what I like. You calibrate that later. Keep missing, that looks good. So I wanted to make myself as fit as a public speaker, withstand enormous pressure, make the audience laugh, How could I do that? Well, I thought that a career in stand-up comedy was very difficult, so I did the next best thing. I became a tax lawyer. To become a tax lawyer, I found that my public speaking skills somehow helped me in a sideways shift. It helped me professionally, helped me withstand enormous pressure in the negotiation room, so I didn't flinch when the offer came in, like against my client. It also helped me run towards the microphone, not away from it, and I got a lot of public speaking opportunities with the Tax Institute, showing my subject matter knowledge in front of a room full of experts and putting my visibility and credibility out there because I was one of the only people to put my hand up to speak in the tax profession. I spoke earlier this year at the Barossa Tax Convention. For tax lawyers and accountants, that's like band camp. It's just a safe place for tax nerds to nerd out about tax. And I loved it. Even tax can be interesting if you have a passion for speaking and you care about what the audience. So when I was teaching myself stand-up comedy, I really like this expression, that if you explain a joke, it's like dissecting a frog. It kills the joke and it kills the frog. But I love the analytical process. I love looking at great speakers, finding something I enjoyed about the speech, breaking it down, figuring out what made it tick, and then giving that thing a name. And once I had a name, I could use that technique to re-engineer speeches. I could re-engineer them very quickly and very effectively. I found that stand-up comedians weren't just lucky when they got a reaction out of the audience. There was something consistent about it, something like it was a pattern, and I learnt from them. Take, for example, Monty Python. If anyone knows Monty Python, the sketches start out relatively normal. They get sillier and sillier over time, so I gave that a name. It was a pattern there, and I called it a crescendo, like in music, when music gets louder and louder over time. So I like dissecting frogs, and if you came into my room as a 15-year-old, in my room, you would have seen just a heaping pile of hypothetically dissected frogs. Now, I'm a weird guy. I like tax and public speaking, but I'm not Netflix series Making a Murderer Weird. I didn't actually have frogs, but I had the ideas, just lots and lots of ideas. Oh, I didn't get shot. This was actually the first idea that I had, fit, and that's why I've got the very wanky speech title, How's Your Speaker Fitness Levels? For me, I saw that if you wanted to be a good speaker, you should have some sort of formula. You should speak according to good principles. You should try to get as great an impression or as many impressions as possible, audience reactions, and you should try to do that in the least amount of time or given an amount of time. And so that's why I want to talk to you about your speaking fitness. Are you fit to speak? Can you withstand enormous pressure? Do you have good principles that you can do effective speeches in a short period of time for yourself, for the benefit of others, to grow your business? Because here's the thing. I got this confidence when I was 15 years old, but when I was 13 years old, I used to think that what I had to say just didn't matter. I had two older brothers, and they were in their 20s. And what are the achievements of a mere 13-year-old compared to two adults? Going to university, doing amazing things in open sporting competitions. I needed a teacher. My parents saw that I lacked confidence, my sentences would trail off, I would mumble, I wouldn't have any vigor behind what I said, I wouldn't have any conviction behind what I said. I didn't run towards the microphone, I ran away from it. They had a friend, his name was Howard Bannister. He worked in radio. He taught people how to be good public speakers. He would come over to our house every Tuesday, and Howard gave me this yellowed, crusty book of Australian yarns, tongue twisters and stories with characters in them. And now I had to tell the story with conviction. I had to put the energy into the characters, and all of a sudden I realised something, that even as a 13-year-old, what I had to say did matter. People were interested in my ideas. So I thought, irrespective of who you are, what you do, you don't have to be a billionaire, you don't have to be a guru, but we can all have a positive effect on people, depending on what we say, but more importantly, how we say it to get the message across to our audience. As I grew up, I entered the professional world, I noticed that we speak in conversations, in meetings, and in presentations all the time. Conversations could be interviews, they could be networking opportunities. And in networking opportunities, I noticed that sometimes people would speak wanting business, but it would never progress beyond small talk. People didn't have a method, a structure, or the audacity to ask for an outcome that was beneficial for the person they were speaking to or for themselves. Then we have meetings. I've sat in on a number of pointless, very expensive meetings where no change happened and there was no structure to it. It was just open-ended, a lot of talk, people walk away having not changed. And similarly with presentations. People speak merely to convey information, but they don't have the mindset of like a stand-up comedian. It's not for me, it's for you, to get your understanding across and to achieve some sort of outcome for you, which might then achieve an outcome for me. Some visibility, some credibility, maybe even some sales leads for a conversation after the presentation. So my challenge to everyone here is to improve their speaking fitness. When you go out networking and having conversations, do you have an outcome that you are seeking for yourself and for others? When you have a meeting, are you brave enough to ask for change and not just to demand it, but to have your audience come to you wanting change? Can you reach into their understanding and their minds, make it vivid and clear for them like a comedian does, and actually get the change out of them? And with presentations, can you do a long, like a 1-hour presentation in a time-efficient way and based on good presentations so that it doesn't take time into your business to do a presentation that goes nowhere? Preferably a presentation that doesn't die after it's been said. It ripples forever in the memories of people. The other thing that I love about good speaking is that I firmly believe, and this is not a joke, that common sense must always prevail. But it doesn't if we don't speak well. If we don't speak up, if we don't tell the truth, if we're not good at withholding and withstanding difficult subject matter and conflict and tension in a conversation, we find that there's no change. Good decisions don't get made. Common sense does not prevail if we do not speak well. So here's the promise of this presentation. I'm going to go through some formulas that have worked very well for me. They help speeches write themselves. They demand that you think about the audience first and get the outcome from them. It's designed to give you systematic ways of speaking effectively, to increase the number of impressions or the size of the impressions you get from your audience, and to do it given an amount of time, preferably as less time as possible, with the goal to achieve something for others and for yourself. Unfortunately, I don't put the acronym before the method. When I dissect the frog, the method comes first, and whatever acronym comes out is what I get. So FIT was the one that I landed on, with formulas, impressions, and time. So just be forewarned that some of my methods have very cringy names. I think Steve Jobs is someone who's very good at selling things, even to a skeptical crowd. I'd like to give you an example of a method that he used to first sell the iPhone. I'll give you a demonstration. Hello everyone, my name's Steve Jobs. I'd like 1 minute of your time. Look at the BlueBerry. Look at the phone that you have now. It's got a tiny screen. It's got lots of buttons. You can barely see what you're looking at, and those buttons are cumbersome. They're not user-friendly. Look at your iPod or your Zune. Music is great, but you can't take calls with it. You can't get the internet on it. It doesn't have a lot of space on it. Wouldn't it be great if there was something that could be all screen? No buttons. It was intuitive. You could have the internet on it, and you could get music. Well, there is a solution, and it's the iPhone. Look at it. It's all screen. You can take the internet. You can play music. And this is our invention. That speech basically writes itself. I want to break it down for you for a second. To say how long you're going to talk for, much like my, my assistant Lisa, is very reassuring for the audience. If I say I'm only going to take 1 minute of your time, you can commit your entire attention span to that minute. I call that finish lining, where if the audience knows where you're going to finish and you're not just going to have an open-ended conversation, they will listen to every single word that you say. The second thing is I start with a problem, not my solution, or not a manufactured problem. It's got to be a problem that everyone has visual understanding of. They can see it, they understand it, they agree with it. And the second thing I do is I don't jump in with my solution, I jump in with a solution. I want it just to be, irrespective of any strings attached, we all agree that this would be a better thing. It would be a solution to the problem. And then I jump in with my specific solution. Because at that point, we all are in agreement with each other that what the problem is. One shot per slide, thank you. And thank you, Lisa, it works. I dodged that one. We all are in agreement what the problem is, what the solution is, and now we're willing to accept what your solution is. And then you can go further. You've got permission to go into details at that point. It's a great method. Encourage you to use it in storytelling, conversations, any sort of persuasive speech that you're giving. It's very versatile use. Unfortunately, the acronym is TAPAS. But I refuse to change the method, even though it's uncomfortable. The method is good, the acronym is not. I want to talk about this guy, Joe Smith. He's one of my favorite TEDx speakers. The concept here is don't just reach your audience, reach your audience's audience. It's a much bigger audience. Don't let a presentation just die in the room. It needs to ripple onwards and outwards. And the way you do that is you make your message very, very easy for people to repeat, and you make it very visual so that they can, when they see it in their daily life, they can just immediately remember it. And his presentation was shake, fold. He had a mission. When you go to wash your hands after going to the toilet, he wanted people to only use one paper square. Didn't want them to use a towel, didn't want them to waste energy using the heater. He thought that you could efficiently wash your hands with one paper towel. And the most powerful thing about his presentation wasn't the statistics, how many liters and liters of paper towels, the sheer volume of paper towels that we use. It wasn't the fact that his method uses interstitial separation to separate the molecules to get more hand washing in. His presentation was simply this. He had a bowl of water. He dipped his hands in it and said, all we need to do is shake 12 times. Why 12? 12 apostles, 12 months of the year. Well, my favorite reason, 12 is the longest number with only one syllable. And he shook his hands 12 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Took one paper towel, fold, dry. And then he just repeated it. And he said, this half of the room, say shake, shake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Fold, dry. Now you're all going to try that in the break. It's such a powerful message because it is easy, it is repeatable, it is clear. And I gave this a name, a wanky name called the ripple effect. Like a rock dropping into water, it doesn't stop, it ripples onwards and outwards. Your message is simple and clear like a rock, very simple, very visual, and the audience will repeat it to their friends and family, and the message doesn't die after the presentation. It's also what I call a stunt, a demonstration, something almost death-defying. It could have gone wrong. What if his hands weren't dry? They were clearly dripping after he did it. He would have looked like a fool. There was something on the line for him. He took the risk, he withstood some pressure, he performed, and it showed that his thing works. And that's why I have a Nerf gun in the audience today. It's a story. I hope that you tell your friends and family about it afterwards, because it's simple, it's clear, it is a little bit death-defying. Now, this is a real passion project of mine. Avoiding pointless and expensive meetings. I'm sure we've all been in a pointless and expensive meeting before. One time, I worked for a very large organization, and we had meetings a lot with a lot of people. And one time, I was in a 1 hour long meeting that was going over time. It was so pointless and so expensive that I actually made a spreadsheet that quantified how pointless and expensive that meeting was in the meeting. The business was under an awards program, so the salaries of everyone in the room was publicly available. And so I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all right, it's 5 of those, there's 4 of theirs, 3 of those, 2 of those. And at an hourly rate of this, it was a $4,000 meeting. No change, no memorability to it. In fact, morale went backwards because everyone left going, it's a stupid organization that runs pointless meetings, we should just be doing work. It did the opposite of what it intended to do. Here's a good rule of thumb for meetings. Say you're leading a meeting, you ask the question, you guys have any questions? You guys have any recommendations for change? Guarantee your employees, your weaker speakers, less experienced people, less confident people, people who their answer might be career limiting to them, because you control their salaries. Think about this. A good driver is not just in control of their vehicle. Of course you have to be in control of your vehicle. But a good driver can spot the weaker drivers on the road and will not just give them enough room to change lanes that is necessary, but more than enough room, because they're a weaker driver, to make that change. Good speakers need to be the same. If you're a good speaker and a good leader, you're leading, it's not just enough to say any questions, 1, 2, 3, no, cool, meeting finished. Because I guarantee you that there was recommendations for improvement. The treasure you were looking for to actually improve your business was there, but it was buried. And asking a simple question and not digging deeper did not excavate that treasure, but it is there. I guarantee you it's there. We need to give more room than necessary to let weaker speakers speak up. We need to make it easy for them. We need to make it safe for them. How do you spot a weaker speaker? They'll actually nod their head, but it's not a congruent nodding their head that they actually deeply understand. It's a little one, just to get you to shut up. You'll see yawning, you'll see blank stares. Bill Gates is who I remember when it comes to being such a good speaker that you improve the quality of other speakers. Bill Gates, currently with a net worth of $126.2 billion as at 2021, used to start off all his questions to his employees as, "This might sound like a dumb question, but..." This is the effect that that question has on your audience. It's safety. It's if I give you a dumb question, tell me why it's dumb. Prove it to me. I encourage you open-handedly to come back to me with an answer. And if Bill Gates can be brave enough to say that, as someone with such a net wealth, such a reputation, that he can say, "I'm sorry if I'm dumb, but can you please explain this to me like I'm 5? That is such an invitation for speaking from your weaker speakers. Another thing I'd recommend is drawing a diagram. If you don't draw a diagram, even if what you do is very intangible, say you work in a service delivery business, you don't make like tangible products, I'm sure there's still some way of representing what you're talking about in diagrammatical form. Because if you don't do this, you're demanding more of your listeners. It's like playing chess without the chess pieces, and chess is hard enough. Business is complicated. Make it simple. But this is what a diagram really does. This is the focus point of a diagram, is that once it's on the board, all you see is all there is. The whole problem is distilled down to just the diagram. And you can point at a diagram. And when you can point at the diagram, you go, it's this thing. I don't understand this. Someone explain this to me. And it makes it easy for your weaker speakers to pipe up during a conversation. And then they can add to the diagram. But what about this? They might not be very good audible speakers, but they can draw a diagram. They can add to it. They can even be a note taker. They can get involved. They can get engaged. And because they can draw it themselves, they can repeat it to others. That meeting doesn't have to die. The messages can ripple after the fact. And you can get change and understanding from your employees. So I highly recommend avoiding pointless and expensive meetings. And this is a philosophy that I highly, highly recommend. As a rule of thumb, Bill Gates' thumb is $126 billion thumb. If I can explain it to you, then I understand. If I can explain it to you, that does not mean that you understand. What I want is you to explain it to me, because then I know that you understand. And so a lot of people in meetings or in presentations, they speak didactically, out and out and out. What's really hard in a presentation or a meeting where it's not open to a lot of questions is how can I make sure that you understand? Because you don't have an opportunity to explain it to me. And that's why we go backwards. The diagram. If you can reconstruct that diagram, then that's as good as you explaining it to me. And that's how I know that you understand. That's how I know that I've got the change. If you can say, this might sound like a dumb question, but did you mean this? Am I just stating an obvious fact? Then they understand. You've got that invitation. If they're nodding their head, not just to shut you up, but because they go, yes, understood, and they repeat the words that you just said that were important, then they understand. If they're not yawning, if they're actually awake, charged up, firing, they understand. If they're not blankly staring, but staring at you for the next thing, then they understand. And all those slides are just so I didn't get shot by my friends. I'm going pretty well. She's so keen, she's got the finger on the trigger. That's my promise. I promised you that I would give you systematic ways, good principles for speaking, so that you could get a bigger impression out of your audience or more impressions per minute out of your audience, given a certain amount of time. And remember, the goal is to achieve something not just for you, but for others. That is the power of a presentation. One of the biggest differences between paper and a presentation like this is that with paper, we're merely trying to convey information. We're all taught in school when we write to have a beginning, middle, and end, and a logical progression. What a paper does is it only says, if I can explain this to you, then I understand. Go home, read this, next to your bedside stand, with a cup of cocoa, and inwardly digest it. It's up to you. A piece of paper is also not dynamic. Once it's said what it said, it doesn't say more. Presentation like this is different. I'm not merely trying to convey information like so many people do in their conversations and their meetings and their presentations. Just beginning, middle, and end makes sense to me. If I can explain it, then you understand, surely. We know that's not the case. A presentation is an opportunity to affect people, to make an impression. It's like a little branding stick that's burning hot. In order to get that temperature up, to make that everlasting impression on people, you need to make it easy for people. You need to think like a comedian. This presentation isn't just for me, so that I can say it, so I can remember it, so I can talk off my slides, but it's so you can understand it. You can repeat it. You can change. "25. And this is the other most powerful thing about a presentation. If we don't speak up, we don't speak honestly, we don't speak with intent, we refuse to withstand tension in the room. We make decisions based out of fear. We run away from the microphone, not away from it, not towards it. Then the best decisions don't get made by the right people. The truth doesn't get excavated. That treasure remains buried. Common sense, therefore, does not prevail if we don't speak up. And that's the challenge I have to everyone here today. To improve your speaker fitness, to speak according to good principles, formulas, to make a lasting impression on people, a big impression, a frequent impression, and to try to do so in a given amount of time, and don't have expensive and pointless meetings. You need to learn how to handle your nerves and be a gun. Thank you.